Okay, so we saw what we're trying to achieve here. We want to be able to delete new customers. We want to display their names. We want to have several customers in kind of like a database, but actually it's going to be stored in something called an array list, which is kind of basically just an array, just a little bit more flexible than an array. Remember that in an array, you can't change the size, or at least not conveniently. But in an array list, you can change the size. Okay, so that's basically the difference. And what we're going to do is store in our array. So I think, let's see, in the first examples of when we had arrays, we stored people's names in the array, if you recall, in the list boxes that we had, and then we sorted those people's names. And but remember that they were people's names, or in other words, they were just strings. Okay, so that was what we did before with arrays. So now what we're going to do is something a little bit more interesting. We're going to take our arrays and we're going to have an array not of strings, but an array of customers. So remember what a customer is. Customer has a first name, a last name, an age, and an email address. So we're going to have in the first element in our array is going to be our first customer. So that first customer is going to have a first name, a last name, an age, and an email. And the second customer and the third customer. So we're going to have an array of strings, but actually it's going to be, as I said before, it's going to be an array list, which just means that you can change the size of it more easily. So on this slide, he describes what an array list is. And he says if you wanted to have like a client database, a customer database, we could have an ordered list of our customers, and we could use a one-dimensional array, just a simple array. But he reminds us that we'd have to resize the array before adding every new customer. And customer deletion would also require a lot of cleanup, shifting clients to fill the empty space created by deletion, and resizing the array to prevent empty elements at the end, and etc. So, like, you don't want to have in your database, you don't really want to have empty spaces. But if you just had an array and you deleted an element, it would just be empty space in the array. So it doesn't really want that. So we're going to use something called an array list. So here's what we're going to do. We just saw this in the last video. So here what we're going to do is create an array, but it's actually an array list, and then we're going to store things in it, just like we did before. So we're going to create a new array list. It's called my customers. And then we're going to have this function which is going to create a new customer. And then it's going to add the new customer to this my customers array list. So it's going to add the new customer. So we're going to have a function which is going to allow us to create a new customer, add that customer to the list, array list, and then in addition we're going to display it in our list box. So if you look at the signature of this subroutine, you can see that there's a comma here, a comma here, a comma here. So in other words, how many arguments does it accept? One to the left of the first comma, one to the right of the first comma, one to the right of the second comma, one to the right of the third. So it's 4 arguments. So those are going to be stored in these parameter names. So in other words, the first parameter is going to be the customer's first name. You can see that we're creating a customer called temp. We're declaring it rather, and then we're giving it a first name, a last name, an age, and an email based on what's filled in this new customer subroutine. And then we're going to take this temp that we just filled in, and we're going to add it to our array list, remember, this is defined outside of this subroutine, so we can refer to it outside here. Outside of here. So we do. No. This is defined outside of our subroutine, so we can refer to it within our subroutine. And then we're going to add this new customer also to the list in our display here. So now we're going to have a button which is going to use this new customer subroutine that we just wrote. So notice, going back to this form, which is our form, we didn't actually call this function yet. So we're going to call it within our test button. Okay? So we're going to call it here, but we're going to call it 3 times actually in our test button. And we're going to add this person, then this person, this one. Notice that each time we call it, we fill in the 4 arguments. And so that will create a new customer. We'll add each customer to our array, or actually our array list, and it will also display them. So we do that, and it's great. Works, except that it's kind of weird the way it displays them. Right? It doesn't really display exactly what you would expect or what you would want. So where did we display them? We did this. So we did the list box, items, add, and we added this new customer that we created here. And somehow that's how it displays. So it doesn't display really the way we'd want it. So we'll talk about that next.